Alright. Okay, everybody. I've been working on this poem for 3 weeks, I think. And I don't know if it's finished, and I don't know if it ever will be finished. But, this is gonna be like a 15-minute long video, so buckle in. I do not wear my Israeli army shirt out. Even when people wear their American army shirts as a novelty and camel prints for fun. I sometimes tuck my Jewish star necklace into my shirt. I only wore my yarmulke for a couple weeks after returning home from Israel because I feared questions, uncomfortable under stairs, and I think of my father, who wears a cap to work over his when his co-workers wear crosses. Of my stepmother who covers her hair and wears long sleeves and skirts even in the summertime. Her father, who, when in the army, was asked by a fellow soldier to remove his helmet so they could see his horns. My father was pitched pennies at school as a kid. My grandmother told my mother and her sister as kids that they were not supposed to tell non-Jews that they were Jewish or Jews that they were Unitarian. No room for leeway, which I will get to later. Not to tell their friends, neighbors, or talk about it at school. My grandmother's story was that her grandfather refused to work because he just wanted to study. Apparently didn't have the money to pay for the doctor needed for their daughter's diphtheria, who died. Because her grandmother had to work but couldn't cover the costs. My grandmother had a disdain of religious Jews, but never has conveyed that to us. They had separate New Year's Eve parties, one for business associates and one for their Jewish friends. When my parents, mother and father, when they were still together, moved to Minnesota and were shopping for synagogues, a rabbi asked my mother what her religious affiliation was. She broke into tears. She was forced to participate in Jewish youth group activities, but could not talk about it. I was raised doing Christmas and Hanukkah, even though 3 out of 4 of my parents have always been Jewish. Unitarian or Junitarian on one side and Orthodox on the other. I grew up somewhat suffocated, but also beautifully blessed. It is not a time to be visibly Jewish. It has never been a time to be visibly Jewish. See, I come from a community where the streets barely have any cars on the Sabbath because we're walking, where we have a kosher deli and the only comics I keep in their original plastic are the Golem that I used to get at Fishman's before it closed. We would still go to their family for Friday night dinners even after they went out of business. There are 3 synagogues within walking distance of my dad and stepmom's house, and the rabbi of ours lives next door to us. A few years ago, we started getting security on the high holidays and Sabbaths at the synagogues and the Jewish school across the street. Armed policemen prioritizing our community, and it is a rare occurrence when I am grateful for them. We've had our gun threats, unsavory characters trying to destroy Zionist pigs or take down the Jew world order, I'm sure. And I never write about this because I am terrified of the backlash. Ever since I moved, my mezuzah, for those of you who do not know, is a scroll holder of our holiest prayer, is on my bedroom door frame and not my front. A Jewish flag on a rainbow background sits in my windowsill, and I sometimes am scared. I just recently started lighting candles on Friday nights again. I mostly only celebrate the Sabbath when my best friend is in town. We cook together and play music, and it's always, always, always beautiful. We met when he was my Lyft driver and bonded over being Jewish, went to the rabbi's house for dinners the summer of 2018. The rabbi ended up being cool with my being trans and told me I should pray on whatever side I resonated with. He shook my hand. I cried. One time when we were singing songs at my place, we heard a voice outside respond and went up to find there was another Jewish guy living close to me. We spoke for several minutes before he went to put back his laundry. I sometimes sing loudly outside in hopes he comes back. There is a queer and trans Rosh Chodesh group where we are safe as queer folks and safe as Jewish folks. I try to make the events, and I'm so blessed for the community. But this is not the neighborhood, not the community I grew up in, and although for years I was forced into dress as a dead named, at least I knew I was safe as a Jew. I remember loving youth group, mostly, except being forced into girls' clothes until they gave up one day when I wore a suit coat, button-up, and tie with a skirt, and I think a kippah also. The staff got so uncomfortable that they just allowed me to wear pants. They asked me to tone down my being trans, which I refused. My favorite memory of camp was DJing a dance party on our last day, girls grinding on me. My least favorite memory was being outed as bisexual at 13 and coming close to killing myself that summer. I think I have Stockholm Syndrome with the Jewish community. Forgot a lot of terrible things that happened to me. Blocked out a lot of emotional manipulation and abuse. Was told stories I don't remember, but probably don't need to. It helps me with my healing to look back on it all fondly, and I genuinely do have a lot of fond memories. Like afternoons at the park on the swings, Sabbath and holiday meals with my parents and family friends, cooking with my stepmom in the kitchen, my dad singing the I Like to Laugh song from Mary Poppins many a time, and I would laugh so hard I cried every time. A Rebbitzin checking in on my transition with love and support, dressing up on Purim and seeing all these people only comfortable in drag when it was a costumed holiday, but loving the skin they were in. The girls at the girls' high schools sneaking me into their plays in the audience when men were not allowed there. My friend's brother taking a drunken piss on the rabbi who shamed me for wearing a yarmulke and ties car on one of our high holidays. Smiles in the men's bathrooms. Dating a Jewish girl finally, my parents were so happy for me. She would knock on the door on Friday nights and we would hold hands under the table. My high school had late buses for the school dances, so those of us who observed the Sabbath would still be able to attend. If I talk too much about being Jewish, I am worried I'll get interrogated like community college, people who call themselves allies and aren't. It's like I'm not allowed to be on the fence, no gray areas, pro-Palestine or anti-Israel, and no way to be in the middle, not even just a little. We can't be critical of the government and love the country, even when so many people feel that way about the United States. And I'm learning, especially after being there as an adult, especially after talking to anti-Zionist Jews, but I remain feeling complex and not sure how to be proud without worry of an attack on my character. I have been asked more about the Middle Eastern conflict than I can care to count. Heard echoes of hatred about my people's homeland while marching amongst those I was trying to protect. And I know it is not only ours. I would never try to claim it as so, but it is to a level. I actually became less Zionist in Israel, but haven't fully shed my skin. Wrote an entire announcement about making Aliyah, then deleted it when I realized I didn't want to be an American Jew potentially displacing more Palestinians. I went on a queer birthright trip. Received a relatively unbiased tour, probably as far as birthright trips go, because our guide felt comfortable with us and knew we wouldn't be buying into any bullshit. I marveled at protesters at Pride. 250,000 people, not just gays in tutus, but proud people calling for change. But I felt wholly there, as opposed to the last time I was there as a teenager. Especially at the Western Wall on the men's side, especially getting a symbolic bar mitzvah, and I'm still struggling to sort out all of my feelings. I do not think I can process them all in this poem. I do not think it is necessarily two-sided. I do not think most of us are. I was told by some men on the street on several separate occasions that I cannot be Jewish because I am white, and the Antichrist reincarnate, when the last time I looked twice at a person of color in a synagogue was probably over 15 years ago before I knew better. Now, not that I would ever put myself into a place with people of color, but I respectfully disagree to an extent. Tell me I am not Jewish when my elementary school had swastikas spray painted on its walls and black and red balloons thrown at our school buses with whoops and hollers of cruelty. when coins were casually thrown at my feet in laughter at a summer program in high school, urging the Jew to pick them up, and I think I did because I legitimately could have used the money, but my face burned hot. Tell that to the Jesus Saves billboard purposefully put up in my neighborhood back home. To being called a kike in anonymous messages online. Tell me I am not Jewish when we have a small storefront called Good News for Israel where I grew up that purposefully lures unsuspecting Jews in. They walk out brainwashed. It was rumored to be a Jews for Jesus place, and right before I moved to Colorado, I had to look for myself, seeing crucified Jesuses on the walls looking back at me, and I don't think that's even what he would have wanted. When one day after writing the first rough draft of this poem, someone I had just met looked at my Star of David and said, "Wow, you really are Jewish," I laughed it off. Tell that to my people who died for being so. Sometime in 2018, in a sunny Sunday afternoon, I was busking on Pearl Street and selling art wearing my favorite shirt, which is a skeleton kicking a swastika into a bloody mess. A man in all black walked up to me and asked if I was sure about that shirt. I returned to stare dead in the eye and replied, "Sir, I am very sure about this shirt." He stood, stunned, and departed disgusted. I want to feel safe, but I will punch the next Nazi that questions that shirt.